Strange times indeed. I'm Cliff McAllister. Welcome to Strange Times Indeed. I am your host this night and every Thursday night at 9 o'clock right here. For Strange Times Indeed. Now we've got some breaking news off the top tonight. This is news, comes out of the CNN, the Central News Network. This is news from just this Monday, just a couple days ago. News comes in, there could be 36 communicating intelligent civilizations within our galaxy. Now, this is based upon something called the Drake Principle. This is a recent study finding that there are about 36 other planets in our galaxy within the same range as Earth. And thusly, it is very possible that these other planets may have the ability to communicate with humankind. Could this mean extraterrestrials are out there? We at Strange Times Indeed believe it does. And in fact, we believe that it means it even more than 36. Let me tell you one thing that I've found in my own personal philosophy about these extraterrestrials is they say life can exist on Mars or on Venus, wherever, Jupiter, because it doesn't have the same atmosphere as our planet. Well, there are fish who live deep underwater where there's no oxygen, where there is no light at all. And if fish can survive down there, well, why can't they survive on Jupiter or some other planet? In fact, maybe our own atmosphere would be nothing but poison to them. Just something to think about here as we get the show rolling on Strange Times Indeed. I'm your host, Cliff McAllister. Now, today we are soliciting donations, encouraging donations to a organization called the Okra Project. The Okra Project is a project that helps provide food and transportation to black trans individuals for those who may be experiencing food insecurity or need extra aid due to COVID-19. They have an aid fund for black trans folks. So we are driving donations to them tonight. You can find the link in my own bio right on my page. Go to that link, make a donation, help them out a little. And we're doing the same deal as last week. My producer, Kevin Cole, for anyone who donated to Black Lives Matter that week, he drew some illustrations on pages from Flying Saucers, Hoax or Reality. And we'll be doing the same thing with donations for the Okra Project. Now, let me show you some of these illustrations my producer drew here. Now, he says he can't mail them out yet because the paper is so flimsy, there's no way it would survive a regular mailing. So we're going to have to laminate these before we plop those in the mail. But there's one there. Oh my gosh, it almost got stuck in the keyboard. It would have ripped right in two. There's another, the Mothman, a popular entity that we discussed last week, as well as this little one of a cattle abduction. So if this kind of art interests you and you'd like some for free, all you have to do is make a donation to the Okra Project. Send us evidence of said donation, and we'll send you a picture. That's right, we've got some Mothman fans in the crowd tonight. Now, as we discussed previously, this week we are talking ghost stories. We want to hear your true ghost stories on Strange Times Indeed. I, Cliff McAllister, would like to hear any ghosts, any spectral experiences that you may have had. And in the meantime, as we wait for calls, we will be reading excerpts from Spirits of Frederick, a book chronicling all ghosts and spectral sightings within Frederick County. Now, this book is updated only as far as 1973, written by the lovely Alice T. Weinberg. So we'll be reading from this tonight, unless we get any calls in. So the lines are open. If you have a ghost story you'd like to share at the start of the show tonight, we can go right into that. In the meantime, I'm going to get started. Go ahead and request to join the video, if you would like. And I will tell you a little bit from the first story. This is an excerpt from a story called We've Got Ghosts Around Here. Clem tells another never-to-be-forgotten incident of his childhood. Scared the daylights out of me and my papa, he said. We've got one call in. I'll join that. Rich Del Grande, we will join you to the call once we finish this little teaser story here. So, Clem tells another never-to-be-forgotten incident of his childhood. Scared the daylights out of me and my papa, he said. He was in a buggy with his father one bleak, starless night on Opossumtown Pike near Rosemont Manor, when his horse suddenly reared up and snorted with fright. As his daddy jumped from the carriage to curb the mare, they both looked up and saw a coven of white forms hovering above the trees. Willowy images, faceless and footless, in all sizes, were buzzing and swirling about 30 feet overhead, like they were weaving in and out and darting here and there. I'll never forget that sight as long as I live. With arms upraised to ward off any attack, they quickly climbed back into the topless vehicle, and his father whipped the horse with the reins all the way home. Their story spread over Frederick the next day, and people who enjoy being scared to death have parked in the gloom of the trees in that deserted spot ever since. So, some frightening tales off of Opossumtown Pike. Any relation to the Weinberg Theater? Well, that's a good question. I'm not entirely certain if Alice T. Weinberg and the Weinberg Theater are related, though I do believe both are haunted to some degree. Now we're going to take in our first caller, Rich. That is his screen name, at least. And we are listening for Ghost Stories. Strange Times Indeed. Hello, this is Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McAllister. I'm Cliff McAllister. What is your name, sir?
Oh, hello. My name is Rich Del Grande.
Oh, hello. You have a ghost story for us tonight.
Yes, I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Well, thank you for calling in, Rich. We're happy to have you here. Let's hear these ghost stories.
All right, I got a small ghost story and then a longer ghost story. The small one happened when I was like 5th grade, and I was on a field trip at the Smith Center. Do you know where the Smith Center is in Maryland?
Not offhand.
It's where the kids go to like do outdoor education.
Okay.
And I was hanging out with my buddy, and we were listening to somebody give a presentation. And as 5th graders, we got a little bit bored, and we decided to wander off. And we looked. It was like a makeshift cabin, like wood cabin.
And this is in the woods, in the forest somewhere.
Yeah, the whole thing's supposed to look like colonial times.
Okay. And
so me and my friend wandered off. We were looking around, and then we looked up into the second floor of the cabin, which I would assume would normally have maybe storage or somebody's maybe hangs out up there. We looked up and we saw what to us appeared to be a Native American ghost staring down back at us from the top of the cabin.
Wow! On the roof.
No, like the second floor. There was like a little ladder that takes you up to the top, and he was very intimidating, like a big figure with his arms crossed, and he was looking down at us, and we were like, who? Like we looked at each other, like we both saw the guy, and we were like, nobody's gonna put like a mannequin there, like it was a real figure.
Could you? And what made it seem spectral to you? Just that it was out of place, or?
Yeah, a little out of place, a little like off color, but it was very like distinctive kind of features, and like the look on the guy's face was like a very scary look.
And it was obviously not like a roadside attraction, not like a big fiberglass man up there.
Yeah, I don't think it was pretend. I don't know why they would have like that good looking of a fiberglass guy in like 1992, something like that. So we were both pretty scared. We were both like looking at each other, and then we both kind of like backed away, hoping to just kind of go like the guy's like, hey man, like, get out of here, go back to your group kind of thing.
So do you believe that this cabin belonged to the Smith Center? You said it was.
Yeah, it's in I think it's near like Rockville, Maryland.
Right. You think?
But I think it's
their cabin.
I think so, or like maybe it was the property used to like belong to the Native Americans, or they used to live there, and maybe the property was taken from them without their permission, kind of thing.
Curious.
So that was a pretty, and like to this day, me and my friend will like bring it up, and like we both remember it like the same way. It's pretty spooky.
That's interesting. And have you ever thought about revisiting this cabin? Have you ever thought about going back to the Smith Center and seeing if you could find it?
Yeah, well, so where I work, at the daycare where I work, I take the kids there, not to the cabin itself, but to the property that's near the cabin. And every time I go there, I'm like, I wonder if I could like go and visit the cabin. But I think there's always like classes and things going on there. so I don't want to like disturb like what's going on. But one day, hopefully, I'll be able to like go back and maybe like ask some questions.
You should pull aside someone who works there one day when you're there and just say, hey,
Yeah.
do you guys have a cabin? Is there a cabin in the woods?
Yeah. Have you ever like, has anybody else ever talked to you about seeing, just give them like an open-ended question and then see what they say, and maybe it'll match up to what me and my friends saw.
Right. Are there any mysterious cabins in your woods, you say?
Yeah. Do you have any regular cabins? And then do you have any mysterious cabins, that kind of thing?
Yeah, they'll say there hasn't been a cabin there for 40 years.
Yeah. I'm like, well, where was I even? Was I even at the thing? And they were like, we've never had outdoor education even here.
This is the old Joe's house, they'll say.
Yeah. Me and my friend were just at the wrong house. Yeah, maybe.
So tell me, and you've got another story. You said you've got an even.
So that one was a little bit creepy. So I have one that's a little bit more, a little scarier story. This happened about 10 years ago, and I was living in Columbia, Maryland, and I was in my bedroom with my then at the time girlfriend, and during the middle of the night, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I could hear her voice mixed with like another man's voice. Like it was like the two voices were kind of like doing the same thing. And it was coming from the...
Having an affair. You woke up and heard she was having an affair, you're saying?
No. It was just like the two voices were like mixed together. I could hear like both voices, but it's like what she was saying and what the guy was saying, it was like the same... It was like two people saying the same thing.
Okay.
So it was like one voice, one set of words, but two voices.
Okay, all right.
And so I heard this coming from the hallway. And so I woke up thinking like, oh, there's some kind of struggle. There's something like going on. Am I going to have to go and do something? But then, so I woke up like looking to the right because that's where all the noises were coming from. But then she was still in the bed with me to the left. But all the noises and her voice was coming from the right, from the hallway. So when I realized what was happening, I saw her like writhing and kind of something, she wasn't feeling too good. And I woke her up. And she told me, she was like, thank God you woke me up. Like, I felt like I was getting possessed.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like,
what else has she said about that? Was that it, or?
Well, so in the dream, when she said she was being possessed, she was like in a room, and they said it was almost like they were closing the door. It was like almost like a Rosemary's Baby type situation where there was like a bunch of people that put her like in a room, and they were closing the door. And like in the room was like the thing that was coming to get her. And they were like closing the door on her. And then she said like, I woke her up like just before the door was closed.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was pretty scary.
And that, what you heard, it sounds like you heard her voice in the hallway away from you, almost perhaps on its way out.
Yeah. I don't know if they were in the process of trying to take her or whatever was going on, but it was mixed. It was definitely mixed with like a much deeper, like a man's voice. And so
you heard her and you saved her soul.
I think so. And then like we were both pretty freaked out. So the next day we went to like downtown to Washington D.C. and we went to like downtown like Chinatown, and like they sell different kinds of stuff down in Chinatown.
You went to the Exorcist stairs and you pushed her down them just to...
I was like, if you can survive this, then you're okay.
Right.
But no, we went to like a shop.
Not a devil in you.
We went to like a shop that just sold all kinds of weird little things, and we were like, anything could help. Like anything could help. And so I was talking to the guy that worked there, and he sold me this little. It was like a mirror. It was about like the size of like a big mason jar cap. And he said for you to like hang the mirror like on top of the bedroom door. All right. And it's supposed to help ward off like the bad energy. And so I was like, okay. I was like, I'll take it. And I put it up, and we didn't have any kind of issues after that.
Wow. Well,
so it could have been a one-time thing, or maybe the thing the guy gave me, maybe that helped. I don't know, but it's a strange situation.
Wow. Well, I remember when I posted the question, I said, if anyone's got any true stories they'd like to talk about, and what category would that fit under? And you messaged me, you said ghosts and possessions.
Yeah.
Like possessions, like, okay. But
yeah, it's a weird,
real Real story
Like
about it.
it could have been just like she was having a bad dream or something, but like nothing really explains the mixture of her voice and the other man's voice, and the fact that it was coming from like a completely different direction from where she was coming from. Like it could have been like maybe because I was half asleep, so like, but when I woke up, I clearly heard it coming from the other direction.
Yes, absolutely. It's the very fact, the dream is one thing, but to add in the very fact that you heard her disembodied voice coming from another room, let alone that voice infused with a man's voice of sorts,
Yeah.
very troubling. But sounds like you got the job done.
Yeah, I think yeah. Hopefully, I mean everything was fine, and I believe the thing that the guy gave me. Well, like I think it worked. So, if you as long as you believe in it, I think maybe maybe it works.
All right. Well, that's an incredible story, Rich. Anything else you'd like to tell us about tonight?
I'm just glad I like your show, and I'm glad you've got the show going on right now, and it's fun to talk about interesting subject matter.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad you like watching the show, and I'm glad you called in tonight, Rich. Thanks so much for giving us a call. I'll go ahead and let you go. We can see if anyone else has a story to share.
All right. Talk to you later.
Thank you, Rich. Have a good one.
Okay.
You're watching Stir. Now, tonight we are talking ghost stories. We want to hear all of them. We want to hear the good stuff. Anyone who wants to request to join the video is welcome to do so if you've got a story to share. In the meantime, we'll be reading excerpts from Spirits of Frederick here on Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McAllister. So anyone with a true ghost story, feel free to call in and share that. We've already heard a tale of a haunting and a possession. Incredible stuff. And a reminder, we are driving donations tonight for the Okra Project. They help provide food and transportation to Black trans individuals who are going through food insecurity or tough times during the coronavirus. So the donate message, the donate button for that is in my bio. Go click that, make a donation, send evidence of said donation to us, and our producer, Kevin Cole, will draw you some sort of odd drawing on a page from Flying Saucers, Hoax or Reality, and we'll mail that free out to you. All you got to do is support the Okra Project at any amount. Any amount is good. Now let me pull up a fresh story here and get the music going again. This is Strange Times Indeed. I'm your host, Cliff McAllister. Now, growing up as a child, I, like our friend Rich, who went on a field trip to the Smith Center, I once went on a field trip to a place called Rose Hill Manor. Now, Rose Hill Manor is a very notable and strange place. As we noted in the first story we were reading, a strange cacophony of spirits flying 30 feet above the ground, sighted right by Rose Hill Manor. Now, here is a story called Disappearing Acts. I will read this, and if you have a true ghost story to share, go ahead and request to join the video, and I will add you in once we finish this tale. An old blue dog is said to lurk in the shadows at night and roam the premises near Rose Hill Manor, which is close to both Fort Detrick and Opossum Town Pike. If you can follow the dog until it barks, it will lead you to buried gold, say some of the volunteers of the Frederick County landmarks who have knowledge of the ghostly happenings at Rose Hill. But it disappears. A replica of the ghost dog, a blue ceramic Great Dane made by Mrs. William B. Lebhers of Rose Hill, disappears too, and when it is located in some unlikely place on the property and put back on display, it disappears again. These stories proved so interesting to tourists that Rose Hill decided to sell samplers patterned after the ghost dog. 5 copies of the designer print were let out to be worked on to the convent in Michigan, and 3 returned with the dogs cross-stitched in blue. Why would the needleworkers think of a dog as blue? None had been told what colors to use, and none had heard the stories. At the moment, the ceramic dog is missing again, but the haunting continues. Ghosts whispering of things past, seem to be ever present at Rose Hill. Built in the mid-18th century, this grand mansion was home of Thomas Johnson, the first governor of Maryland, the last 20 years of his life. The people of the county considered it a hard-luck house, where crops failed, marriages fell apart, and unhappiness prevailed. Once seedy and forlorn, Rose Hill is now owned by the county and maintained by the Parks and Recreation Commission. It is a children's museum, a beehive of activity. Refurbished through the efforts of landmarks, volunteers are there day after day in old-fashioned costumes demonstrating cooking on an open hearth and other arts and crafts of early American life. Quite a few of these volunteers will admit to hearing sounds and voices they cannot account for. They tell of one night when a pretty guide in an antebellum dress was showing the house by candlelight. All was serene and beautiful. The polished glass and brass and antiques were sparkling in the firelight. And then a guest vanished. 7 persons had started the last tour of the evening, laughing and talking and peeking into old cupboards, but only 6 gathered to say goodbye. One woman, who seemed to know more about the history of the house than the young hostess, was missing. The bright lights were turned on inside and out, and while some visitors stayed close together in the front hall, others searched every room and closet of Rose Hill. They revisited the attic and cellar and barns, and even the old stone spring house, with slits in the thick walls for shotguns, and a secret trapdoor leading to a hiding place under the floor. But no one found the 7th guest. Like the blue dog, she too disappeared. It was she who whispered to the others that long ago a young girl with the vapors, for her missing in action soldier boy, had killed herself by jumping out a window, and that there was a patch of white on the lawn that looked like crumpled crinolines. And there is. The ground has been seeded and sodded repeatedly, but grass will not grow there. It dies as if something is lying on top of it, keeping out the sunlight and rain. Who was this mystery woman? She was not registered in the guest book, but everyone saw her. Where did she come from? Where did she go? Maybe she did not have to come and go. Maybe she is a part of Rose Hill. That is a story from Spirits of Frederick. We're hearing your true ghost stories tonight, and we are taking in our newest caller right here on Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McAllister. Thank you for calling Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McAllister. I'm Cliff McAllister, and who, may I ask, are you?
Hi, Cliff. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. I'm your producer, Kevin Cole's father.
Oh, well, nice to speak to you, sir. And do you have a ghost story to share with us tonight?
I hold on a second. Kevin's mother has her iPad on, and there's an echo.
Yes, if you could turn down the volume.
She did. I think we're good now.
Perfect.
Say hello to Kevin for me.
I will.
Yes, I do have a story. I don't think it can top the possession of an ex-girlfriend story of Mr. Del Grande.
It's a very powerful story right out of the gate. Who knew we'd be opening that strong tonight on Strange?
I was impressed. No, I've never seen a ghost, but I have heard a ghost.
All right.
Actually, I've heard a ghost band.
Mm-hmm.
I working over at my church here in Mount Airy late one night years and years ago. I was making some copies for the musicians there at the church, and I heard music playing, and I thought, well, somebody's downstairs listening to a radio or something. So I went to the stairwell where I heard the music coming from, and went downstairs, and nobody was there. So I came back upstairs, and I still heard the music. So I thought, okay, the people next door must be having a party. So I opened the door to the side of the church there, but it was silent outside. And that has happened to me on several occasions late at night at the church. There is a ghost band that lives in the basement of Calvary United Methodist Church in Mount Airy.
Oh, very curious. Well, perhaps we'll have to do a show from there one night.
Ooh, late one night. That would be interesting. And interestingly, it's a bluegrass band.
All right. That is interesting.
Guitars and banjos, yes. So that's my ghost story. Again, not as exciting as a possessed girlfriend, but, not bad.
And this is an old church, you say?
It's a very old church. Big, old, kind of Gothic stone structure on Main Street in Mount Airy.
And let's say, do you happen to know how far back bluegrass music goes?
I do not. I'm guessing probably to the 1940s or 50s. It was invented, though, in Bristol, Virginia / Tennessee, right on the Virginia-Tennessee border. Bristol, Virginia is the ancestral home of bluegrass music.
Good to know. Hold on.
Oh, I've choked you up.
Sometimes it goes down the wrong hole,
Are you okay, Cliff?
Yes, you. Wouldn't that be an ending to this episode? Were I to become...
Cut short.
Here's a question from the comments. Magic Scarfs asks, have you ever tried to record this music?
I have not. This was so long ago, it would have been back when I had, if I even had a cell phone, it would have been an old flip phone. So, I didn't have my modern smartphone to record such things. If it ever happens again, though, I will be certain to try and record that. That's a very good tip from Magic Scarf.
There you go. And I wonder, perhaps, in the meantime, it would be beneficial to step away and research any local bluegrass bands as early back as they can go. Check the old microfeed for any bluegrass bus accidents or something.
I'll see what I can find out. I'll Google that after I get off the air here.
All right. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to talk about tonight?
No, that'll do it. Just wanted to say hello. Finally, nice to meet you, Cliff.
Well, nice to meet you too. Well, hopefully you'll call back again one day.
There we go. Take care.
All right. Live long and prosper. This is Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McAllister. How do you like that? Live long and prosper. It's a new phrase I just thought of. I'm trying it out. Tonight we are hearing ghost stories from across the country. We've heard tales of possessions, tales of ghost bands. Anyone with a ghost story is welcome to call in. Until then, we've got more selections from Spirits of Frederick by Alice T. Weinberg. Seeing some love in the comments for Spirits of Frederick. All right, let's see. Let's pick out a good one here. I do want to say I've been looking through this book, and I have to enjoy all the pictures of the old people who told their ghost stories for this publication. The first man, Clem, looks like he's the original dirty grandpa, or bad grandpa, whichever one was Johnny Knoxville. Not the one that was, what's his name? Robert De Niro. Hard to keep the dirty grandpas straight. Da, 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 da. College Ghosts. "If the happenings here are not supernatural, they are certainly out of the ordinary," wrote one of Dr. Marie Campbell's folklore students at Mount St. Mary's College in Emmitsburg. Two 1973 seniors wrote that a priest told them he heard strange noises in his room at night, that when he left the room tidy and locked, it would be disheveled upon his return, the bed torn apart, books and papers scattered on the floor. The priest said he thought that his boys were playing pranks on him, but then his light started blinking spasmodically, and his television blasted out at odd times of the day and night. Even when he was in the room, this happened, when he was sure he had turned everything off. When he could take the harassment no longer, he left the college, a puzzled man. Another priest who lived in that same room with his pet cat agreed that there was definitely a frightening force of some kind there. The students write that this priest said he would be reading and meditating, his cat playing nearby, when suddenly, for no reason, the cat would freeze in her tracks, stare at the door, and bolt under his cot. Lifting his cassock, he would get down on his knees and reach for the scared animal, only to have her spit and claw at him wildly. This happened several times until he moved to another part of the dorm. The room is no longer occupied, according to student papers. We're telling ghost stories tonight on Strange Times Indeed. If you have a true ghost story to share, please call in. We would love to hear it. At St. Joseph's College nearby, the girls wrote they often heard moaning and groaning in the night. One wrote that some had seen the image of Mother Seton gliding along the halls in her nun's habit, accompanied by a man carrying a doctor's bag. This reflection was hazy but very real, and clear enough to get the picture before the ethereal duo turned a corner and disappeared into a room. The students attributed these apparitions to the fact that St. Joe's was used as a hospital maintained by the Sisters of Charity during the Civil War. Mother Seton, sainted in 1975, founded St. Joseph's College, and her tomb is there. To browse through the essays on ghosts all alone in one of Mount St. Mary's old stone buildings is a scary experience when the school is not in session. Folklore files are kept in the archive of a building erected in 1808, in a cubicle of an office on the second floor, at the end of a labyrinth of shadowy halls. They thump, swish, and rustle every thump, swish, and rustle is magnified in the silence of the tomb-like atmosphere. After reading for over an hour about students and cats and even priests being spooked, panic sets in. The researcher gathers up the needed information and hurries down the long, dim hall to a staircase that leads to the main entrance, with a pounding heart and the feeling of being watched and followed. That's a true admittance of cowardice by Alice T. Weinberg there at the end of that story. And that's what makes it so real. Now, let's see here. All right. Alice T. Weinberg was the wife of Daniel Weinberg, owner of the Tivoli Theater, now the Weinberg Theater. Well, there we go. A real connection to downtown Frederick. You're watching Strange Times Indeed, and I'm Cliff McAllister. Ghost stories tonight. If you've got a true one, give us a call. We'd love to hear it. Strange Times Indeed. I'm Cliff McAllister. Ghost stories tonight, your true ghost stories. Give us a call anytime. We are listening for ghost tales. We're also taking donations to the Okra Project, We're not taking them personally, but encouraging you to visit the link in our profile. Go ahead and give that a click. If you send us evidence of said donation, we'll send you some artwork. The Okra Project is a project that aims to provide food and transportation to food insecure Black trans individuals. They also have a COVID aid relief fund to help that community out. So if you could help them out, that would be incredible. Go ahead and make a donation. Send us evidence of doing such things, and we'll send you some artwork. For now, it's Ghost Stories on Strange Times Indeed. This episode almost became a ghost story when you were having a cough. That's very true. Here's this quick recap. We've heard the tale of a man's ex-girlfriend possessed, and then saved. We've heard about ghost bands. I've read a few stories. And I almost became a ghost during a call. Have you ever visited Roarsville, home of the supposed Blair Witch? I have not visited it. Have you visited it? In the comments, if you visited it, if you met the Blair Witch, give us a call, let us know. Otherwise, we are listening in for your true ghost stories here on Strange Times Indeed. This next excerpt from Spirits of Frederick is called Tombstone Mystery. Some have said, there's a tombstone that bleeds in a cemetery in Thurmont, but they cannot say exactly where the old gravestone is located or describe the stone. The horrible story behind this rumor is that a stranger met with a terrible accident on a road nearby many years ago, was pronounced dead and buried as soon as possible because of the condition of the body. Later, people had reason to believe the man was not dead when they buried him. A splotch of blood appeared mysteriously on his simple marker. The fresh, wet blood appeared on the anniversary of the day they had put the body in the ground. Supposition was that the entombed man, if buried alive, must have bled to death trying to claw and scratch his way out of his hastily made pine box. One curious person chipped away at the dark brown blob and had a sample analyzed. It proved to be human blood as suspected. If it wasn't seeping from the corpse, whose blood was it? A careless gravekeeper's? A prankster's? Was the whole story a hoax? No one admits to knowing anything about the incident anymore. No one came looking for the stranger. No one remembers the particulars, and no records were kept. But once upon a time, some have said there was a tombstone that bled once a year in Thurmont. This is Strange Times Indeed. I'm Cliff McAllister. We're talking ghost stories tonight. We're listening in for your true ghost story, so if you've experienced a haunting, a specter, an apparition, give us a call. We'd love to hear about it. In the meantime, we are reading excerpts from Spirits of Frederick to uncover some of the only local hauntings that we know of. As recorded by Alice T. Weinberg, heiress to the Weinberg fortune. I think the music's going to reset in a minute. So let's get that rolling, and then we'll read another story from Spirits of Frederick. Thanks for tuning in to Strange Times Indeed. I'm your host, Cliff McAllister. Your true ghost stories tonight. Give us a call, request to join the video if you've experienced a specter, an apparition, anything of that sort. We'd love to hear about it. In the meantime, Spirits of Frederick by Alice T. Weinberg. This story is called Night Prowlers. A man living on a farm near Walkersville years ago rode his horse into the center of the community every evening to take his seat on the liar's bench in the front of the country store. He had to ride past an old church graveyard, and if it was dark, his horse would become frightened at a certain spot and balk and shy off the road. The farmer decided he had had enough of this foolishness, so one night he forced the horse to stay on the well-worn path. Midway past the cemetery, the night rider suddenly felt something plop down behind him and press hard on his head. The horse sputtered wildly forward at breakneck speed, while the man, as scared as the animal, held onto its mane like Sleepy Hollow's Ichabod Crane, fleeing the headless horseman. Home at last, man and beast drenched with sweat and trembling, the farmer decided not to tell of his awesome experience, knowing his family would only say, "Drunk again." But when he sat down to breakfast the next morning, his grandmother noticed the change in him immediately and fainted. His black hair was now crowned with a white handprint for the rest of his days. Rondo Legore, a dapper member of the old Walkersville family, a raconteur, tells the story about the farmer and the following story as they were told to him. A very old lady, a neighbor, died without ever having been photographed in her life, so hasty arrangements were made to have her picture taken in her casket to put in the family Bible. Years later, a child given the book to keep him quiet at a family gathering let out a piercing yell. On looking in the album, the children's parents found that the features on the photograph of the dead woman had disintegrated as they would in the grave. The only picture they had of great-grandmother was a skull and bones, according to Ron. Another family returned from the funeral of a beloved mother to see her reflection in a mirror looking over their shoulders. "I can tell you something that happened to me personally," said Lenore. "I didn't see anything, but I sure heard something, and my dog did too. You know, in the mid-1800s, horses were the only means of transportation in the country. If you wanted people to work for you, you provided food and lodging. At Legore Lime Kiln, the family had a large house, a barracks for the hired hands, and a huge barn. Itinerants who worked in the plant lived in the barracks and ate at the big house. These people did not stay in one place long. There were any number of them roaming the countryside at that time, working a while, then going on, sometimes returning for a meal. Years later, the family moved into another house, and the barracks were torn down. Then we began to have visitations at night. We would often hear strings of loud noises and laughter and unintelligible conversation, but not see anyone. On several occasions, my stepmother told me she saw smoke rings come through the open door of her bedroom, and she smelled a certain type of stale cologne she couldn't place. When she'd wake my father and tell him about it, he'd grin and pat her and tell her she was dreaming or imagining things. I asked about the noises too, but my father said that people who had worked in the plant long before must have come by, seen the changes, and gone on. As a child, I bought this story, and on nights the house got noisy, I would cover my head and try to go back to sleep. Then came the first night that I was to spend alone. As bedtime approached, let us say I was concerned. I got the bright idea to bring my favorite Belgian sleep dog in from the kennel before dark to keep me company. The dog settled down by my bed, and just as I was falling asleep, I heard those all too familiar noises in the house. I waited, holding my breath, then heard them again. This is silly, I thought. If there really was someone in the house, that big watchdog by my bed would be raising Cain. And I turned and put my hand down to touch the dog, but he wasn't there. Then I saw him in the moonlight over by the door, standing like he was petrified. His eyes were glassy. His tail was between his legs, but every hair on his back was standing straight up. That was my first indication that the noises were not natural. Legore remembers his own mother would never stay in the house alone, day or night. She wasn't afraid of squirrels or in the attic or rats in the barn or snakes, or bats, or bums. But she was afraid of something she couldn't explain. I left for college the day after my frightening experience, fortunately, Ron continued, and that house was torn down when the road was improved, so that was the end of that. He said he never discussed it with his father. It dawned on him that his father had always known what he knew. They had ghosts. And this is a picture of the young man scared out of his wits by his own admittance. We're hearing your true ghost stories tonight on Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McAllister. I'm your host, Cliff McAllister, so go ahead and give us a call if you've experienced as a spectral entity of any sort, any strange happening, any strange occurrence. Go ahead and give us a call. We'd love to hear it. In the meantime, we are driving donations to the Okra Project. The Okra Project is a organization that helps provide food and transportation to Black trans individuals. If you make a donation to this organization, go ahead and send us an image of your receipt. You don't have to show how much you gave. You can cover that up if you want. And our producer, Kevin Cole, he will draw you an illustration on the pages of Flying Saucers, Hoax or Reality, and he will mail that to you. Now, we started doing this last week in support of Black Lives Matter, and here are some of the illustrations that came from it. We can't mail them off quite yet because the paper is so brittle, it's so flimsy, that we need to laminate it just to protect the artwork. So here's a peek at some of the art that we have that are being mailed out to people who donated last week. This week, we are accepting donations to the Okra Project, so go ahead and support them and let us know about it. And we'll send you some art as a thank you for supporting people who need our help. Strange Times Indeed, I'm your host, Cliff McAllister. Ghost stories tonight. Excerpts from Spirits of Frederick, but if you have a true ghost story, please give us a call. We would love to hear from you and hear about your experience. So go ahead, think on those. Call in if you've got something to share, and I'll pick out the next story. All right, it looks like we've got a caller coming in. This is Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McAllister.
Hello, Mr. McAllister.
Hello, this is Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McAllister. Who may I ask is calling?
This is Cullen Dolson. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I have a ghost story for you and the wider audience.
Yes, please share it with us.
I was at a cabin out in Shenandoah Mountain that I knew from reading ahead of time was fully haunted.
Okay.
It was a cabin called Corbin Cabin, made in the 1800s. And a woman had died there, the wife of Corbin, and in childbirth. And she was said to be a very kind ghost that watched over people. And of course, I knew this with the other trip leader, and we didn't really think much of it because ghosts we didn't think were real. But then we were so frustrated because we'd come all this way and we'd forgotten butter. And we had talked about it as a team. We're like, this stinks so bad. We forgot the butter. We were so excited to use it the next day. When we're unpacking, we realized we got everything except for the butter. I see Ellen is on. She just joined and she was there. So I'm glad that she's involved.
Witness, that's good.
So she can back me up here. We woke up the next morning. Snow had fallen.
Okay.
We looked out the back door. On top of the snow, probably 30 feet from the house, was a stick of butter, unwrapped, an unwrapped full stick of butter.
Just sitting in the snow.
Ghost butter, some would say.
Did you consume the spectral butter?
I believe we did.
Incredible.
I don't know what that did to me as a person.
Right.
Oh, another part of this is that we were freaked out by that, and then we were like, okay. So, it was all coming out that maybe this thing was haunted. And my friend Cameron said, I saw something. And we're like, okay. And we made him leave the room because clearly haunted. And then we read out loud the description of this woman. So we'd all knew. We asked Cameron to come back in, and he described her to the teeth.
No way.
Yeah. Mom is incredulous right now.
How would you describe this woman?
The first word that comes to mind is matronly. She had long,
Others are.
right? Long, dark hair. I guess what you would imagine as like an 1800s settler's dress.
Yes. And
Yeah, Alex was there too. Alex knows. Dang, all the people are joining who were there.
And
Alex, remember Ghost Butter? Yeah.
I can't believe you've had ghost butter.
And so you and your friends consumed the ghost butter, left to you by this woman who had died in childbirth at this cabin.
Correct.
And so you knew this. You said you knew this place was haunted before you and your friends went out there. Correct?
Correct.
But you said you didn't feel the need to tell all of them.
Yes, correct. I mean, we didn't want to scare anyone away from a good time.
Okay. And I did not eat the butter. We've got one person who did not eat the butter.
That sounds like the words of a sad ghost.
That's true. The ghost did sacrifice its own spectral butter for your friends.
To make it into such a good rectangular prism as she did, she must have worked very hard.
Yes, to materialize it out of its own dimension and into yours. Unless while you were asleep, the ghost created a Disney's Fantasia moment of butter churning.
It did. That's exactly what happened.
There would have needed to be fresh dairy for this to occur, wouldn't there have been?
What's that?
There would have needed to be fresh dairy at this cottage.
It's not happening.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
It's more like she went to the ghost store.
Oh,
Spectral dairy store.
a spectral dairy store, my mother suggests.
and of course none of your friends would have gotten it because it was snowing, like you said.
Oh, and you had to hike 7 miles into the cabin. And there were no footprints around it.
Just there, butter in the snow. Spectral butter.
So,
Wow, now that's incredible. That is an incredible story. Do you have any other information you'd like to share with us tonight, Mr. Dolson?
no, that's pretty much it.
No, but there's a cat laying in a really cute way.
Oh, yeah, I do have some cute cats.
All right, let's show the people the cats.
Rosie. Hello.
Look at that one. What a start.
She's also a ghost.
She's not a ghost cat.
Cats can see ghosts, it's true.
Well, some would say that we all become a cat after our own death. Cats have 9 lives, and you only have 1. At the end of yours, perhaps you become a cat, and then you get to live 9 more times, which brings you to an even 10. Makes sense?
Wow. That's some logic I can get down with.
That's why we have 10 fingers.
All about the even 10.
That's why we have 10 fingers. Wow. The origin story.
Anything else you'd like to share with us tonight, Cullen?
That's it. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate yours. Thanks for calling in to Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. McAllister.
Thank you. That's right. This is Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McAllister. I'm your host, Cliff McAllister. We've got about 5 minutes left in the program, which means it's really like the last call for any of your true ghost stories. So feel free to give us a call with those if you've got one. I'll see if I can pick out one more story from here, though I really read the good ones of what I read earlier this week. He does bear a resemblance to the Sir Poop entity that called in on a previous episode. Here we go. To wrap things up, since there do not seem to be any final callers, a pleasant story. Not all ghost stories are scary. There is a beautiful one that bears repeating about Larry and his flute. This story is retold every Christmas, even by the area newspapers. Grown-ups living in the foothills of the Blue Mountains were told it when they were children, and now they tell it to their children at least once a year. Larry was born in those mountains. His father, Dr. Henry Casper Dielman, from Frankfurt on Main, Germany, a noted musician and composer in his native land, was appointed professor of music at Mount St. Mary's College. There he wrote the special music for the elaborate inaugural ball of President Martin Van Buren in 1837, and then Larry grew up with the music in his heart. He could play several musical instruments, but the flute was his father's favorite. Larry's best beloved melody was a Christmas hymn written by his father, "With Glory Lit the Midnight Air," a selection that had become part of the repertoire at the Mount and in many churches and homes in Frederick County. Larry's father died in 1882 and was buried in St. Anthony's Cemetery in Emmitsburg. And as the years went by, Larry grew old and gaunt, but every Christmas for 40 years he climbed the steep hill to where his father was buried to play the flute. Many of the townsfolk followed him to the graveyard in their boots and colorful stocking caps, their scarves and coat-tails whipping gaily in the chill wind, and all agreed that it was an uplifting experience. The music floated over the glistening, snow-covered mountains as it was coming from another world, as if it was coming from another world. But one Christmas morning, the flute was silent. The people went looking for Larry and climbed the hill in the snowstorm to find him sitting on his father's grave, too tired and weak to play. They tenderly put him on a child's sled and pulled him down the hill to his cottage, where he died of pneumonia at 76. That was in 1923. None of the people of the area have said they have seen Larry's ghost, but many have said they still hear his flute in the crisp, cold air of the mountains near Emmitsburg at Christmas time. A final ghost story for us tonight on Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McAllister. Thank you so much for everyone who joined us this evening for a tale of ghost stories. Please remember to consider making a donation to the Okra Project. Go ahead and share your receipt of that with us. Doesn't matter how much, and our producer Kevin Cole will draw you something supernatural upon the pages of Flying Saucers, Hoax or Reality. This has been Strange Times Indeed with Cliff McAllister. We heard stories tonight of possessions, of spectral hauntings, of ghost bands, of spectral butter consumed